all inside. Garrison Brooks, Armando Bacot, they're going to have an advantage in this game again because, once again, you don't have a ton of size for Yale. Again, these guys aren't, the smallest team that Carolina's played all year. But this is still a game where you have a size advantage, you have a talent advantage down low, and you want to see them be able to take advantage of that. And that doesn't necessarily always mean that you have to get a look at the rim with a lay-in or a dunk. You also can, sort of use that mid-range game that Garrison Brooks has shown at times. But you need your big guys to step up and perform well. And I think also, you're going to have somebody, maybe one or two guys in particular that shoot the ball well, especially from the outside. If that's Anthony Harrison, Brandon Robinson, if that's Andrew Platek and Brandon Robinson, if that's Andrew Platek and Jeremiah Francis, it doesn't really matter. Whoever it is, you got to have some guys that step up and shoot the ball well from the outside for you. I'd like to see Christian Keeling take another step forward with him shooting the basketball because we saw he gained a little confidence in the game against Gonzaga, wasn't fantastic in the game against UCLA, but you'd still like to see him build off of what was a pretty solid road trip out to the West Coast. And the other thing is even though you won't be able to do it much, when you have a chance to push the pace, you have got to do it in this game because that is going to be where you can maybe get a burst of 8 or 10 or 12 points that could help you just monumentally when you come down the stretch. And the other thing is if this is a close game at halftime, you have got to avoid that early run that teams are able to get on you in the second half that I mentioned just a little while ago. Because if that happens in a game like this against a team that is as good defensively as Yale is, you could be in a little bit of trouble if it's a close game. I still think Carolina, with the talent and with the fact that we saw they were able to push the pace a little bit against Gonzaga and UCLA, I think that Carolina can find ways to get the tempo up a little bit, something they weren't able to do, and it cost them against both Ohio State and Virginia. I think it won't be as difficult against a team that is probably the third best overall defensive team that they've seen so far this season, just based on defensive efficiency. So it'll be interesting. This will be a nice test for Jeremiah Francis, who has played really well so far, been able to speed up the offense, but now you're going to be faced with a team that is really going to be trying to slow you down and play their pace of basketball. We'll see how he'll adjust.
Yeah, and look, Yale's not very deep, and I was going to piggyback off you wanting to put the ball inside as I lost my train of thought. They've only had 8 guys that have appeared in all 13 games so far that they've played this year. So they don't have the depth that, teams that Carolina's run in the last couple of weeks. Now, granted, Carolina themselves isn't as deep as they normally are, but they're still more deep than Yale. So if you can put the ball inside, you play through Armando Bacot, Garrison Brooks, who has really turned up his aggressiveness around the basket, get their big guys, whether it's Atkinson or Brunner, into foul trouble, it's gonna soften stuff up for your offense, and defensively you'll be able to take advantage of some of their rotation players. At the end of the day, the game of basketball is pretty simple. If Carolina does what they got to do, which is shoot the ball at a decent clip, their shooting numbers have climbed to 41%, which is as high as they've been since early part of the year. And if they can rebound the way that we expect them to, Yale only brings down about 38 rebounds per game. Carolina's about 46. Then it should work out to where Carolina wins. I think that's what happens. I think Carolina takes another step in the right direction. They're still going to have stretches where the basketball is not going to be pretty. That's just how this team's going to play, quite frankly, all year long, with the amount of youth and lack of cohesiveness on the roster right now. But I think they'll play good enough to get a win, get to 8-5 to close out non-conference season. Roy Williams will then, of course, tie Dean Smith for the all-time win record, and we enter ACC play a little more optimistic than we would have thought back in mid-February. What do you say, buddy?
I think I'm kind of in the same area as you, maybe just a little more confident in Carolina and what they're going to do tonight. I have them scoring in the 70s. I think it'll still be a relatively close game late. I agree with you there. But I think Carolina pulls away a little bit towards the end. I have it somewhere in about the 10 to 12 point range. But I think this is going to be one of those games that you can look back on if they come out and perform well, and you can say, okay, this is part of what was, the turnaround of this team, and combine that with the UCLA win. I think those two games, if you end up winning both games, you're going to come back and look at it and say, look, this was where the season turned around for a team that was struggling. And the emergence of some of these young guys, I think we'll continue to see that. Tonight against Yale, I think Jeremiah Francis will come out, push the pace a little bit like he likes to do. I think Anthony Harris will once again be able to build off of his performance and show it wasn't just a fluke. And I also think that, maybe Christian Keeling or Justin Pierce steps up in this game, because after this, you're getting into conference play. So it's not going to be easy from here on out. You're going to have to get adjusted to playing an ACC team every single night. This is your last chance against a mid-major. I think maybe one of them steps up and has a big night. And, I got Carolina winning somewhere in that 10 to 12 point range to get to 8-5 and get Dean Smith, Roy Williams tied with Dean Smith for the most wins in program history by a head coach.
All right. So a couple things before we get out of here. First off, guys, the decade is coming to an end. And so, as you can imagine, we're doing some fun stuff. We want to know, and I'll put this out there for football as well. I'm on the hunt to find who do you think is the all-decade starting five for Carolina basketball. I have mine written up. That article will be released on New Year's Eve. Anthony is working on football. I guess an all-decade depth chart, I guess you could say, of first team, second team, and I guess, are you doing third team as well?
Yes, I have gone about as deep as you can go, including on the special teams where we have first, second, and third team long snappers and holders. Yes, I have gone this deep into it.
Okay, that shows you the lack of life that we have. But we want to hear from you guys on all-decade players and your opinion, both on Carolina, both on the basketball court and on the gridiron. It's been an interesting year for both programs, or an interesting decade, I guess you could say, for both programs. So give us your opinion, whether it's on Twitter or Facebook. You know where to find us. Hit us up there. And there'll be some fun conversation for us to have. Also, want to encourage you guys to check out the Heel Tough Blog website. End of the year's closing down, but that doesn't mean that we're slowing down. Football, we got you covered from a convincing win over Temple. Anthony's recap and stock report is on the website. My church report is on the website, and the podcast can all be found at HeelToughBlog.com. And, of course, we'll have you covered basketball-wise as we head towards ACC play. We'll have all the stuff from the Yale game on the website following tonight's action. So encourage you guys, check out HeelToughBlog.com. Lastly, want to encourage you guys to subscribe to the podcast wherever you find your podcast. We're on Spreaker, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Spotify, you name it. You can find the Roy's Voice podcast. Just give us a like and give us a review. We'll greatly appreciate that. I want to thank you guys for listening, and as always, go Tar Heels.